Well, let's talk about this. We got the story from The Independent. Put people in jail. Former Fox reporter calls for arrests over right wing's great replacement theory. Tucker Carlson responded saying this is going to get really ugly really soon, slamming ex-Fox News colleague who suggested he should be in jail or something worse. What's something worse? Carlson asked his audience after airing a clip of the remarks from the former reporter Cameron made over the weekend to CNN. We're not sure what something worse is, but it certainly feels like we're moving toward it at a very high speed at this point. Rhetoric has its own internal logic. We've experienced it. We can talk ourselves into things. Democrats are doing it right now. And what they're talking themselves into right now is, quote, something worse. It's scary. It's time to pull back. It's time to de-escalate. Otherwise, this is going to get really ugly really soon. So, should I say the magic word, civil war?
You can always say it.
I mean, I would hope that everybody ignores people like that on the extreme.
They don't.
Right?
I mean, this
some
guy
people
makes
do, some people don't, right? Like, my friends from Silicon Valley are all Democrats, but they're not going to say Tucker Carlson should be executed for talking about replacement theory.
But are they active in politics? Are they the public speakers?
No, exactly.
So you have on CNN, here's what happens. I don't think intent matters on either side as this conflict escalates. This guy goes on CNN. They probably didn't know he was going to say this. He says it. They probably say, okay, well, that was a little over the top, but we know we don't mean it, right? We don't want to go that far. But then Tucker Carlson sees it. And then he talks about it and says, look what they're doing. Look what they're saying. And then, of course, people who see that are like, whoa, those people are crazy. So it's exacerbating the problem. It's escalating things, regardless of whether they're being tongue-in-cheek or hyperbolic or otherwise.
Feels like the network should be responsible for these people that are talking on the network. I know it's not a social network, so they don't have, 230 in parity, but
they don't care though, because they know they don't make money from Trump supporters. They have no cultural tie to conservatives, Republicans, or libertarians.
But this guy's saying something worse. The only thing worse than jail for a criminal is death penalty that I know of. I mean, you either life in prison or death penalty. That's the next thing that's worse. So what's this guy going on CNN and suggesting that someone needs the death penalty for talking on a news channel?
And now people are going to hear
CNN
you saying
needs to come out and speak against that.
And so whether anyone has the full intent of it or not, people will hear us talking about it. Right. And they're going to be like, man, these CNN people have lost their minds allowing this.
Yeah,
they're going to say Ian's right. They shouldn't allow that. This guy's calling for the death penalty for Tucker Carlson. That's crazy. And then you'll mention my Democrat friends don't believe that. But this is something at the highest level of the conversation.
Right. I would say that, it's kind of all of our collective responsibility to do what you can. I mean, I do what I can to keep my Democrat friends. A lot of them, I'm an independent, and I've still lost a lot of friends, just by being a little bit more outspoken. But try to make an effort to stay friends with people. Most people are reasonable. If you point out things like this to them, they'll probably be, yeah, that's batshit crazy. I thought all the batshit crazy people were on the right. I didn't realize there were batshit crazy people on my side too.
Yeah.
Pardon the French.
Oh, I'll do a little bit. Try and do a little bit of that conciliation. Say look, what he said is totally legal. I mean, what he's suggesting is ridiculous and unconstitutional and a million other things. But him saying that should be the penalty for saying things he doesn't believe or should be said on public air. I guess he can say that.
How does he get to that point? How does this guy get to the point where we'd actually say something worse than jailing for talking about an idea pushed by? So I just want to clarify.
He should lose his job. I don't know.
He said go to jail or something
like
worse.
a jail for a week or lose your job. I don't know.
I wouldn't apologize for it.
I'm not.
What I would say is these people. I'm sorry. I don't know how we solve this because I think they're nuts, and I'll tell you why. It has been many prominent Democrats who have argued for demographic change in efforts to maintain power. When Tucker Carlson points that out, they accuse him of pushing a conspiracy theory. And I'll say it again. Many Democrats have said immigration is a path towards maintaining political power. Tucker Carlson says, look what they're saying. He shows them saying it. And they say, he has said something so dangerous, he should be jailed or something worse. How do they get to that point? Look, I know Donald Trump said lock her up to Hillary Clinton, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's inevitable. Hillary Clinton actually did bad things. Joe Biden did bad things.
Yeah, but political persecution is not the answer. That's for
so
sure.
But what do you do then? Do you say Hillary Clinton destroyed 30,000 emails, but we're not going to go after her because it would
he should say she should be charged, not locked up. That's the judge to decide, or the jury.
And then everyone says criminally charge my opponent, you criminally charge yours. Everyone says they're right. You know, you mentioned it on the show before. The left says the exact same thing about us that we say about them. And then I pointed out, yeah, but we're right. Like when I say Joe Biden went to the president of Ukraine and said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion loan guarantees. That's on video. He actually did that. A prosecutor who was investigating Burisma, where his son was on the board. All of that happened. Well, that should be investigated. But then they push things like the Ahmaud Arbery lie, the guy who filmed it goes to prison, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd. I mean, all of these things that were embellished, hands up, don't shoot, outright not true. Jussie Smollett, they all believed it. They keep pushing all these things that are just outright falsehoods. But you have, it's almost like, man, an equal and opposite reaction. As more people get access to the truth through social media, more people join the zealous cult as an equal and opposite reaction. Is that really it? Is that law of thermodynamics just a reality for every element of existence?
We have free will. It exists within our energy, but we have free will. Like when something, I think that people are doing too much these days, too fast with politics. Like you don't need to make a change. Like today we're like, what's going on with the news? There's not a lot of news today. Good. Let's live in peace. That's the idea. And these feelings like they got to legislate and create new law, and sign this and that. Like, dude, what?
Maybe it's like that episode of Star Trek where
Belot.
Which one is that?
Is the half white, half black?
No.
No.
Where they have this energy pulse slamming into the Enterprise, and so they're like, raise the shields. And then they're like, the energy pulse is getting stronger. And they keep doing it. And then finally, I think it's, was it Data or somebody says, lower the shields. And they're like, are you sure? Do it. And they do. And then the energy wave dissipates. And it was that the more they increased their shields, the more the energy reflected back stronger, like a Chinese finger trap. You've got to stop pulling as hard as you can and just push in. Wow. Then you can get your fingers out.
Become friends with your enemy. And all of a sudden, there's no conflict.
But I wonder if we're already at the point where the finger trap has been ripped to shreds and there's no, coming back.
I mean, one of the things when people were really fighting in 2020, I was like, well, let's do Tulsi Gabbard. Like she would be like the compromise candidate for both parties.
And what did the left sides. And what happened with the left?
Yeah. When I suggested this, some of my friends on Facebook went apeshit saying she was just an evil Republican. Yes.
This is why I say, like, when you say the left has the same thing about us, I'm like, yes, but we're right. It's very simple because I'm not a traditional conservative. I've never been a conservative. And I supported Yang and Tulsi in 2020, trying to find that compromise that the establishment left and the leftists were unwilling to have.
So some of my friends were receptive to it too, though. So I mean, yeah, keep trying.
I think those for sure. I think a lot of people who watch this show even were probably like, oh yeah, I used to vote Democrat. Then we started paying attention, and now we're just like, I'm not interested. I'm not saying Republicans are going to solve your problems. I don't think they are. I think they're going to do a lot of nothing.
I like your metaphor about the shields creating more than the finger trap, because it's like if you're angry about what you're communicating because you've been upset by what they did, then people can tell and they don't want to listen. But if you don't have that resistance and you're just stating it, yeah, Biden, he bribed those guys to fire that prosecutor so that Burisma didn't get investigated. That's pretty much that's a fact I saw on TV.
I should say,
I'm not mad about it. It happened.
Why did Biden do it? Well, we can say it's corruption either way, because telling a foreign country that you will withhold aid to them unless they fire someone, that's a corrupt act. He doesn't have the authority to do that. And they even told him that, and he bragged about it and said, call the president, see what he says. Like, wow, he's bragging about superseding the will of the people. That's crazy. Now, did he do it to protect his son? That's a question that needs to be answered through an investigation. What do we know? The prosecutor was investigating Burisma. His son was on the board. Joe Biden did intervene. You don't talk about motives or incentives. I don't care. He did it. So now you investigate, look into emails, determine whether or not he did it to protect his son or not. But either way, like, he bragged about doing it. Now, when we say that, who's telling the truth? I mean,
that's a conversation I had with my dad a few days ago about the facts, because he was like, when he watches this show from time to time, he's like, oh, you guys are saying wrong. The wrong information is what you're saying is wrong. And I'm like, well, what's right? What's true? There's so much information being shoved into, and he was actually like, but I mean, what's true? How do you know what's true? You get 80 million different pieces of information from 80 million different sources, and they're all like, they might be right, they might be wrong. So it's like
we get things wrong.
Yeah, of course.
But the things we get wrong aren't like core details on major political events. The things we get wrong are like, I'll say a caliber of a gun, and then someone will chat and be like, Tim, you're wrong about that. It's actually this. I'm like, oh, that was a mistake.
Yeah, but to them, you're in the same category as QAnon people who believe all sorts of crazy stuff, right?
And we're not.
Right, but that's not that's not how they see it.
But they are. The Blue Anon people and QAnon people, they would get along swimmingly in their weird beliefs and things that aren't true.
Yeah, you tend to see in others what's in you. I've noticed.
But look, QAnon is fringe. Mainstream conservatives and libertarians aren't entertaining QAnon people. Blue Anon is mainstream Democrat. They believe for years the Ukraine gate, Russia gate stuff that's all been debunked.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I would say in Silicon Valley, the Republicans justifiably lost like any support for the future with like Cheney and Bush. And I would say the same thing today, that like the Democrats have equally deserved like no support in the future from any of these. If anybody who's principled, I would say quit.
What concerns me about that?
Quit your party if you're Democrat.
But if you go to your average Republican and ask them about some crazy conspiracy, they might give you a half-baked answer where it's like, well, I don't know, but these things I think are weird, and I read this somewhere. If you go to your mainstream Democrat and ask them about like Russia and stuff, they're probably going to be like, yeah, I think he did it.
Sure.
And it's like, even though Mueller proved it wasn't true, even though now with the Sussman trial, we're learning about Hillary Clinton's role in signing off on these things, they're going to be like, oh, I don't know about that.
I mean, first of all, I'm steel manning my friends here, just so you know. But, they would say, well, yeah, we know that there was all this stuff that's like shady about the report that came out of England or whatever. But we still know that there's like collusion happening between Trump and Russia. Like, we know that he has hotel deals he wants in Moscow, and they'll say stuff like that. And, to some degree, there's probably, you can't be as successful as Donald Trump was without, having to bend the law a little bit in places.
For sure. And so we talk about Trump and the things we actually don't like about his presidency relatively often. Drone strikes and, why that happened, things like that. Donald Trump, whether it was him or someone else, Trump hotels were being advertised on a State Department website. Like, these are bad things. Trump tried to have, I think, the G7 at Trump Doral in Florida. Like, really bad thing. You shouldn't do it. And Trump was like, but I'm going to do it at cost. And I said, so what? You're still maintaining your business through a government contract. I think that's wrong. I got no problem saying that. But then you hear from a lot of these people, they won't even bother watching a show like this. I mean, let alone Google searching half the news that comes out. That, to me, I'm sorry if I'm a little pessimistic in that regard, but I think, we talk about technology and all these things, and I don't think that's the issue. I do think we need technology to be developed because there may come a time when we get cut off completely from Silicon Valley. If a civil war really is coming, or we're in one, fourth, fifth generational warfare, whatever it may be, what do you think is going to happen to the anti-establishment when states start breaking apart? San Francisco is going to be like, eliminate all the IPs from states that we don't like. And then how will you communicate? What will you be using? There's going to need to be something. So that in that sense, technology, that's why I like Rumble Cloud Service, because I'm like, they might censor me. So
what you said earlier, Aaron, was interesting, that Silicon Valley people there got disenfranchised with the Republicans with Bush and Cheney, and then now they're being disenfranchised with this ridiculousness in the Democrat side.
I hope so. I mean, that would be my hope. I'm not there anymore. So,
but what the problem with that is that who do they care about now? Well, they care about the corporation. So who's the new authority? The corporation? I mean, if Google thinks it's running the show now because the politicians are incompetent, that's kind of like maybe even worse. I don't know what's worse, an incompetent president or a corporation that thinks it's in charge.
I don't know. That's a good question. I would hope that they're still anti-corporation too. I mean, the left was supposed to always be anti-corporation, like from my entire life, and so it's
now
a little
they're pro-corporate.
I can't even stop at Google. It's Alphabet, which is owned by BlackRock. I mean, it's not owned. It's in part owned by BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard.
Yeah, and that is purely a result of the propaganda to like try to scare people about like, the corporations are our only hope against these evil racists in Kentucky or whatever who, are going to, would be throwing gay people off of buildings if they had their way. So
Well, now there's like a big scandal in the UK because they were flying the Union Jack over some street, and all these leftists are like, "This is what the Nazis did," and it's like, "Yo, it's your country's flag." Like, just because the Nazis drank water doesn't mean you shouldn't drink water, you know?
I'm thinking about Posobiec. I don't know if you guys heard Jack Posobiec. He was went to Davos a couple days ago and was detained by Klaus Schwab's personal guard. I don't know if they were private police.
They were police.
I believe. Yeah, were they private police?
No,
or Swiss police.
It looks like they were just cops.
I was told they were private. I could be wrong. Okay, maybe they were.
They were wearing police on their
So maybe it was police. Maybe it was corporate security. I don't know.
Well, they were wearing police on their uniforms.
Yeah. So maybe it was Swiss police. Let's just stop there then. I don't know for sure if it was a private guard, but you see these corporate private guard, and they don't care about the law. They care about serving the corporation where they get paid. That's where I think that's the fear. I'm not so worried about the politics. I'm worried about these corporations that are sneaking in, trying to buy up land.
Bill Gates, what is he, the single largest owner of farmland? That doesn't mean he owns all of the farmland. It means for a single entity, he owns more than anybody else. That's a lot. It's weird. I don't trust the guy.
Yeah, I don't want to pile on the guy, but man, he is a weird...
And where's Luke at?
He's coming.
We need him to pile on.
I hear you, Luke.
Is Luke in the chat?
I don't know, probably.
Hi, Luke, if you're watching.
Luke Rutkowski, ladies and gentlemen, we are change.
Big fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how you have this belief, or I don't know how you describe it, but you have multinational corporations, politicians, they meet together in big international conferences. The New York Times are invited guests at the World Economic Forum, along with world leaders and people like Bill Gates, where they're talking about really horrifying things like, what did they say, implantable bio-tracking or whatever for your lives, tracking your carbon footprint.
Yeah, for better compliance.
Yep. They talk about like mandating health requirement stuff. Vaccines.
It's so crazy because it's not American. I for a while it was like I just disbelieve it. I couldn't even begin to believe that people thought that way because I'm like, no, I'm born in America. First Amendment is paramount. You don't do that to people. That doesn't happen. But now I'm realizing they're not from America. They're not from the United. They don't think like that. This is like authoritarian, weird European pseudo-communist, fascist, Nazi stuff. Freaking and technocratic.
Yeah, and
there are misconceptions. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
There are misconceptions about just how popular, like the. I hate the term free speech absolutism because it's kind of begs the question. But the American First Amendment conception of free speech is not unique in the world, but it's very rare. And I think one of my worries is that I think it's becoming increasingly rare just in a gut conception of what free speech is in the younger generation. And millennials and now Gen Z is even more so. And to address what you're saying, is the government the worst? Is the corporations the worst? I would split the difference and say the worst possible state of affairs is one where they're both the government and corporations are competing to please each other. That you have in place a corporate apparatus that can do things that a state would like it to do without repercussions.
So people are saying that the police actually were wearing badges that said World Economic Forum Police on their arms. So that's actually what he stated they were World Economic Forum Police.
So it's a private company, and they have the word police on it, which is interesting because I used to think of police as a public service, but not in Switzerland, apparently.
I mean, it's not surprising in Switzerland.
No, it's not. But it's
I've been
terrifying.
to Davos, man. That was a big blizzard. It was crazy. Everybody was there was like betting on crypto for the future, all these ultra-rich people.
Yeah, you guys got deep in crypto?
Not really, no. I mean, crypto is something we've been looking at a lot recently. It's been overhyped, and we're kind of disappointed that we wanted to find a lot of anti-establishment engineers to kind of just make these kind of decentralized things and open source things that, help free us from the oligopoly. And unfortunately, a lot of the attention, I like to say, all the elite engineers are either working for Google, but those who aren't are working are trying to do cryptocurrency schemes. And some of them are, Bitcoin works, it's great. A lot of these things are just complete nonsense. They don't work. They're not going to work.
I remember in the early days.
Ponzi schemes, some of them.
Yeah, I remember in the early days, there were just hundreds of coins that were derivative of Bitcoin, and people were just trading between them, and it was nonsense. It was like they were all basically just slight alterations of Bitcoin that for some reason people bought. The craziest thing was when there would be a coin that was the lowest possible value it could be, like an eighth decimal point of a cent. So if you bought a ton of it, it could only double. So people would do it. So people would put like $1,000 into the most worthless thing possible, because at the very least you sold it and got your money back because it couldn't go any lower. It's the weirdest thing. And then if it went up to 2, you doubled your money and you pulled out. Crazy back in the day with crypto. It was just weird stuff. Game of hot potato, Ponzi schemes, whatever.
Yeah, you need utility. I like the Minds coin as an example because you use one coin on the Minds network to get 1,000 views of advertising.
Yeah, Bill's been really good about making sure Minds is like not like what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's not treated more seriously than it should be, and it's kind of useful.
They didn't take a pre-sale. Like the CEO didn't take
Right.
20% of the coins before they went live. They just all went live. He buys them just like everyone else. He has to get them just like everyone else does. That's a legitimate thing. And then they won't nail it as a securities fraud. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It actually has value on the network.
But then, do you need crypto?
Well, you gotta be able to defend yourself against the SWIFT payment system if they want to cut off your bank account. I don't know if you need crypto necessarily, but
Like, couldn't you just make like the Minds coin? Facebook did this before. Remember when they tried making their own currency?
Yeah, I mean
Libra.
they did try, and Telegram did too.
No, even before Libra, I'm pretty sure they had like Facebook coin or something.
Oh,
Yeah, before crypto. They were like tokens you could get for like the games or whatever.
I mean, yeah, that's not even a blockchain. That's just
Right, no, it's like
an in-app purchase in a video game. Like
Yeah, and it's like having gems in Zelda, but you can use them on Facebook. Yeah.
It's my understanding Diablo 2 gold was actually like a usable currency in some countries for a while. I don't know.
Oh yeah, World of Warcraft gold also.
Mm-hmm.
That actually had value because they were, people wanted it, so they were farming it and then selling it.
Mm-hmm.
But now World of Warcraft allows you to just buy gold. You buy a token that gives someone a month of gameplay, and then they spend 20,000 gold on it. So then the economy is totally manipulated. I just want to say this, guys. If you if you're not a fan of communism, if you want to explain inflation to somebody, just introduce them to World of Warcraft. Or if you know any socialists who play, just ask them, have they ever noticed why it makes no sense that linen costs like 30 gold? So let me simplify this for you guys. You don't need to be a fan of the video games or anything like that to understand why this is important, or how it's a good reference for people. In the early days of World of Warcraft, there's a game mechanic, secondary called professions. So when you go out and you're fighting bandits and then they die, you take their clothes. You get linen cloth. You can then use that cloth to make armor, or you can do leather working. You kill a boar and then you skin it, take its leather. It used to be worthless because the value of the item you got was comparable to the level you were. If you just started the game and it's easy to kill these things, it's not very valuable now, is it? But then they rolled out the mass printing of currency by allowing you to buy money. So if you start the game, you can be like, I want to buy the best item, so I'm going to give hard US cash to just have all the gold I want without doing any work for it. Well, what ends up happening is now the lowest level items cost obscene amounts of money. If you start the game off, you'll have no way of making that money. I guess it's hyperinflation. You get the linen, then you sell it for a bunch of money, and then the economy makes literally no sense anymore. That's what the mass printing of money does. Makes everything cost more, and World of Warcraft is the easiest way to make these young Gen Z or millennial socialists understand it. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.